Hey guys, I'm Trick. Welcome back to Queer History Matters. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about some of my ongoing research. I am currently listening to the Trans History podcast with Amari McGee, aka Mari. Mari is a black trans man living in Atlanta, Georgia. He's originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and has spent some time living in Chicago, and he is a professional speaker and activist and a former IT nerd, and he makes a lot of really cool content. So far, I've only listened to part of season 2 and most of season 1. I skipped the video with terminology, or the audio with terminology, just because I feel like I kind of know the origin of most trans-related terms, as I'm pretty well-versed in this type of research. However, I have listened to every other episode of the first season, and it was a very good listen. I finished it up, I want to say, a couple of days ago, but I have been very, very busy, so I haven't had a chance to sit down and really talk about what I listened to and what I plan on researching further. I think that the Trans History podcast, or the Trans History lesson plan is definitely, the Trans Lesson Plan, that's the name of the podcast. Trans Lesson Plan, it's like the go-to podcast for trans history is what he likes to call it. And it's kind of like a really good jumping off place for a lot of my future research. The first episode I listened to actually wasn't the intro episode, but it was the episode on Magnus Hirschfeld. I have been obsessed with Magnus Hirschfeld's work, as well as the Institute of Sexual Science and the story behind it, for God knows how long, since I started studying history, basically.
Since you've known me?
Since I've known River. And how long have I known you? When did I meet you? April 2021?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've known River a while. But yeah, I started listening to that episode, and there's also another episode, one's about Magnus Hirschfeld and one's about the Institute of Sexual Science. And those were the first two podcast episodes I listened to, and I decided to give the rest of season 1 a listen. I'm probably going to cover those 2 episodes more in depth when I make my 70-hour long video about Magnus Hirschfeld, because that's going to be a really long fat video. If you guys don't hear from me for 6 months, that's what's coming. Some sort of shit like that. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the trans lesson plan the trans lesson plan and what I learned from season 1, and Magnus Hirschfeld and the Institute of Sexual Science video coming at some point in the future. No promises to when. You know what? By the end of 2026. That feels like a realistic goal-ish. River, you think you could try to hold me accountable for that?
Yeah, I was nodding.
I can't see you playing video games.
I realized you couldn't see me.
I also can't hear you because I'm looking at the camera.
No problem.
I can see you in the camera, but most of the camera is just me. You can only really see your arm, baby. River's here. They're cozy.
I'm
Gaming. I got off work maybe an hour ago, so I'm just sitting down ready to chill. And then after this, we're gonna have some chili. If you are in the Hudson County area and you're looking for a nice warm meal, the chili from Pompeii Pizza in Bayonne, New Jersey is fucking delicious. Their sandwiches are kind of mid, but they have some of the best slices you'll ever taste, and one of the only places I know that sells an RC Cola fountain. So if you like RC Cola and yummy Italian food, definitely check out Pompeii. They're delicious. Anyway, Magnus Hirschfeld, fuck. Oh wait, okay. I listened to the intro episode, and found out that Mari is also Mari World here on YouTube, so I'm gonna link his stuff in the doobly-doo. I already said he's a black trans man from Georgia. I don't know exactly how old he was at the start of season 2. He was 25, so he's probably a little bit older than me, a couple years maybe. But I'm not sure exactly how old he is. Probably like mid to late 20s, maybe 30. Anyway, sorry if I accidentally flashed anybody. I'm wearing boxers, I promise. Yeah, I skipped the terminology episode, but I might listen back to it because it might be worth a listen. I was at work when I was listening to it. I don't really have the time to like sit down and type up the different definitions that Mari gives. But if you're looking for a little bit more of like an intro level, I definitely recommend listening to it. And if anyone has listened to it, let me know if it's worth the listen. When I was listening to the episode about Magnus Hirschfeld and the Institute for Sexual Science, I really enjoyed the listen, and I had a lot of thoughts about stuff I want to talk about in my longer video, but I briefly wanted to mention that it made me think about my first experiences of the gender binary as a child, and how in the Western world, sex and gender are kind of considered like intrinsic roles from birth. And that, like, yeah, there's a difference between sex and gender, but they're typically, like, correlated, at least in terms of the long-term historical narrative. However, there have been trans people as long as there have been people. It made me think about the first times I've experienced gender binary as a kid. I think, some of the first things that I realized was, like, being treated differently. Like, I couldn't be shirtless. I couldn't stay out past certain times. I wasn't allowed to go into certain areas. And I was, like, always not really understanding why I wasn't allowed to and how I was treated different. And now that I, like, pass and I look more masculine, I feel like I'm forced to fit into, like, the more masculine role. And it sucks. And I wish I could just be Patrick. And yeah, that's definitely the first type of experiences I experienced as a child. I remember I felt like there was nothing wrong with being a girl until I learned that being a girl was something different than being a boy. I didn't even know what a penis was till I was like 9. Nobody told me that they were different. No, actually, I probably was a little bit younger than 9. Like, I probably was like, actually, how old's my brother, River? I was like 5.5 when Jack was born, right? How old was I when I started changing diapers? Probably like 6, 7. I don't know, around there, whenever Jack was born. But like, genuinely did not know what a penis was until my little brother was born. I was like, what the fuck? Why do you look different? That was a crazy experience, bro. I visited him in the NICU and he's just looking at me like, goo goo gaga. And I'm like, huh? Do you like my sound, River?
It was a good sound.
Thank you. But yeah, I definitely don't really remember feeling like boys and girls were different until I realized there was like supposed to be a difference. I never really felt the gender binary until all of a sudden I was expected to be a woman. And I'm like, just looking at people like they're crazy because why the fuck do I have to wear shorts under my dress? And why the fuck do I have to wear a bra when men come over, especially men who are related to me and would never have sex with me anyway? Like, I'm sorry. Just because, like, Uncle Tom is coming over, I'm not putting on a fucking sports bra. That's stupid. He's not looking at my titties, and if he is, I don't want him in my house. You know? It was just stupid. Like, I genuinely, like, my back pain has not improved since getting top surgery. I definitely feel lighter. I feel less sweaty. I get less fatigued. And I get, like, less, like, you know, like the brown shit that builds up, like, here, River?
Yeah.
You know? I don't got any of that no more. But I definitely feel like part of the reason why I cut off my tits in the first place was because I felt like people cared more about, like, honestly, other people cared more about them than I did. Like, they're like, you have to, just because you have fat in this specific part of your body, therefore your worth is this, your role is that. I didn't like that. I don't like when my body dictates things about me. Like, I'm just some guy. There's an episode called Native American Influence on Gender Fluidity, and I also kind of tied in the sex versus gender and the intrinsic rules at birth into that episode. I feel like that those themes carried on into both podcast episodes. One interesting thing that Mari noted is that you don't really need to frame your gender in a Western or binary way at all. And you don't have to identify yourself in, like, Western ideas of transness either. Like, if you're an indigenous person who wants to identify as, like, two-spirit, or, well, that's the most common I know in, like, the continental United States, but I know there's, like, no matter where in the world, like, certain indigenous people have, like, certain genders that are, like, closed off to white people. I don't know all of them, but, like, it's very important to respect those closed practices and support gender diverse people, whether or not they identify as trans or not, which I think is really important, and I like that he mentioned that. Mari emphasizes the belief of several tribes, but specifically in the Navajo. Is it Navajo or Najavo, babe? Navajo. Specifically, the Navajo highlight the importance of children's autonomy over parental authority. So basically, letting your child be themselves and letting them dictate what they want to do in their own roles, rather than basing their roles in society based off of what their parents want or what society thinks would benefit them the most. Mari also stresses the importance of parental and familial support for queer, especially trans children, and also trans adults and adults in general. We gotta support everybody, bro. If you're not supportive, and you don't feel supported, you're not gonna have a good life, man. Mari also mentions that many traditional Native Americans' thoughts, beliefs, and practices were wiped out by European colonialism, and that includes indigenous thoughts, beliefs, and practices relating to gender and gender identity and gender expression. But, like, we can now, like, realize, like, as a society that, like, well, I hope we all do, recognize that, like, you don't have to frame gender in a way that is appealing to white people. You can identify however you want, and, like, however many people exist, that's how many genders exist, because every single person, it kind of has their own gender, not gonna lie. There's as many ways to be trans as there are trans people. Mari also emphasizes the importance of supporting a trans/queer child's needs, but any child, but specifically a trans or queer child's needs, over familial expectations, like the belief of the Navajo. Was it Najavo? Navajo, fuck. Navajo.
Like
I'm sorry.
Navajo.
Bro, I'm not gonna remember that.
Or the J in jalapeno.
Navajo. I'm sorry, guys. I have a speech impediment. I'm kind of retarded. I'm not trying to be racist. But if I am, I'm sorry. I know as a white person, I'm gonna be doing accidental racisms. And I don't want to do that. But if I do, I'm sorry. My bad. I take full responsibility for it. And I know it's not up to y'all to educate me. So, but like if I do something wrong, let me know. You know? Because I promise I don't know I'm doing it. I'm not trying to be malicious. Maury emphasizes the importance of supporting a trans or queer child's needs over familial expectations, and he specifically shouts out his mom and his uncle for always supporting him throughout his transition. Later on in the season 2 intro, which I'll get into when I cover season 2, he talks more about his support from his mom and dad, as well as his overall larger family support, and how he kind of became like the educator and the teacher of the family. And that's definitely something I'll get into more when I cover season 2, but that's something I definitely wanted to note, that Maury always shouts out his familial support and really stresses the importance of family and supporting your trans and queer family members, which I really appreciate and like. He has an episode about significant protests before Stonewall, and I want to do more research on each of them, and I feel like Maury definitely encourages the listener to do their own research as well. He also encourages the listener to, while they're doing this research, to remember that LGBTQ plus history didn't start and will not stop with Stonewall. Although it was the most, like, famous protest, and, like, yeah, the first Pride was a riot, there were other riots before that. And I feel like as long as there has been queer people, there has been queer pride. It just has taken on, like, a new meaning. Like, the LGBT pride movement is not the same as LGBT pride. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. And I also feel like prioritizing Stonewall as much as people do erases, like, it Americanizes, like, hold on, how do I explain this? It, like, centralizes America in a way that Americans already do. Like, what the fuck is a kilometer? I don't understand the metric system, even though most of the world uses it. Why? I don't fucking know. It's stupid. But I feel like even in an episode that's, like, talking about stuff other than Stonewall, it's still a very Americanized episode, and Maury mentions multiple different events in U.S. history in the 1960s that started the gay pride movement before Stonewall. But also, I like that he mentions this as well, that trans and queer people are making history every day just by existing. Like, I am making trans history just by waking up every day and existing as a trans person. But, like, there's trans people all over the world. It's not just about trans Americans. But anyway, even though that I do have that little qualm, am I using that word right? Qualm? Qualm?
Yeah.
Means I like something overall, but don't like this one thing, right?
A qualm is like an issue you have with something.
The one issue I have with it is that it's very American-centered, but also, like Maury mentioned in the episode we're going to talk about next, if he was going to include every single thing, it'd be, like, way too fucking long. So I think he only did this, like, as just in America, just in the 1960s, just to keep the episode from being, like, a fucking million years long. So I understand that is a common research, limitation is the time and scope that one historian can take on. I know that's something I've also definitely personally struggled with here on Queer History Matters and within my own history career. So, absolutely no shade to Maury, and also I really appreciate that you encourage the listener to do their own research because you can't get super in-depth into them. I think that it's very important for people to learn their own history by learning about it from multiple different sources. I don't think it's good to get all of your information from one source, and that's why I try to have a large diversity, or a large amount of sources that with multiple different points of views that are very diverse, so I'm not just, repeating the same shit over and over again. Anyway, back to Mari's podcast. Significant protests before Stonewall. Some of the protests that Mari mentions include the Dewey sit-ins in 1965 in Philadelphia, Cooper's Donuts in Skid Row in LA in 1959, the Compton Cafeteria Riot in 1966 in San Francisco, the Black Cat Tavern in LA in 1967, and I think that's pretty much all that Mari mentioned that I wanted to talk about in that episode. There was one more episode left in that season that Mari covered, and this is the one I'm least familiar with. A lot of my research has been in American history, World War II history, New Jersey history, New Jersey's in America, but you know what I mean. Specifically, New Jersey history, and that includes, the Revolutionary War and shit, because we were one of the 13 colonies, but, I know a lot of local history, and I did a lot of work with, We're Here JC, which highlights, marginalized voices in Jersey City, and while I was at New Jersey City University, aka NJCU, I got to be at some of the installations of the art pieces, and it was a really wonderful experience. But TLDR, I'm not versed in Greek mythology at all, or Greek history. I'm 0% Greek. So, when Mari started posted an episode titled Transsexualism in Greek Mythology, I knew I would not really have the full scope of the tools to break it down, but he did give me some points that I can use as a jumping off point for my research. So if anyone has any good sources about any of this stuff, I've definitely done my research on Magnus Hirschfeld and the protests before and during and after Stonewall. And I do know a little bit about Native American history since I am pretty well versed in American history, but I don't know shit about the Greeks. I read Percy Jackson once, 10 years ago, so I'm not an expert. If you guys know any sources, let me know. I definitely love sources for the other shit, but Greek stuff especially. Also, I don't know in Greek, I don't know a German, so both of my research onto transsexualism in Greek mythology, as well as into the Institute of Sexual Science and Magnus Hirschfeld's research, will be somewhat limited due to only speaking English, and I know a little bit of Spanish, but not enough to get by. I work in customer service, and I can help someone who speaks a little bit of English, and I know a little bit of Spanish. We can get through the transaction, But I don't know enough Spanish to read it fluently, and I only know how to read English fluently. So I am a bit limited in my research in that regards. However, I do like that Mari also notes that in his episodes as well. I really appreciate that, and that's an important thing I should mention is I only speak English, and I think that it's important that I respect that other people might know these things more than me if they know the language. So I want to try to listen to Greek scholars about this kind of stuff, but I do want to use Mari's episode as a jumping off point, because I feel like the trans lesson plan is really good at that, as a jumping off point, as a lesson plan. You can plan it accordingly. You can kind of alter and tweak it, and that's what I want to try to do here on Queer History Matters. Anyway, transsexualism in Greek mythology. Trans people have been around as long as people have been around, and trans people have been around since the start of oral and written history, and definitely before that we just didn't have the proof. I will say, if you're interested in trans oral history, to listen to the NYC Trans Oral History Project. I personally worked on that, and I had a blast when I worked as an intern in college, and I had to give up my position at the NYC Trans Oral History Project due to having to pay rent and not being able to dedicate as much of time and effort into that project as I really wanted to. However, I will always be proud of the time I did work, or proud of the work I did with them and the time I have put in that effort. And also Mari mentions that he has worked with the, what's it called? I wrote it down somewhere. Hold on. Where's my other phone? I have like 3 phones right now. Don't worry about it. This is gonna bother me. Found it. The Georgia Transgender Oral History Project for Georgia State University is one of Mari's projects that he got to work on. And it is also a great resource for trans oral history. And I wanted to shout that out, and I want to look into that a lot more. That's a wonderful jumping off point that I want to look into as well. But yeah, basically, being trans isn't a modern or new experience. It's an experience as old as humanity itself. And transsexuality is as old as humanity itself. And with that, there's a lot of instances of transsexuality in Greek mythology, and some examples that Mari lists are Dionysus, Sporus. Dionysus.
Sorry, I got excited.
Cutie. We're gonna look into him later. Sporus, who was, basically Emperor Nero decided to be like, yo, what if I accidentally kicked my wife in the stomach and killed her and my baby? Yo, this enslaved person kind of looks like my wife that I accidentally killed. What if I cut off his penis and made him my male wife? Which is so fucked up, and I definitely feel like reminds me a little bit about this book I read in college called Black on Both Sides. It was a very hard read. I don't think I understand most of it. But basically, a lot of modern gynecology is based off of essentially the medical torture of Black people. And I don't think that the tale of Sporus is definitely reminds me of some of the early types of modern gynecology. Mari also mentions King Henry III of France, who was named the Transvestite King. And I definitely want to look more into him, because that sounds like a lot of fun. But I also don't know much about French history, despite the fact that I am French Canadian. Before they got to the New World, I don't care. That's not my family. I don't give a fuck. We don't claim them. We only claim beaver. I'm like the maple syrup French, not the oui oui baguette French. But we support, and we will learn more about, what king was that? It was something the third of France. Was it King Henry? No, I feel like dummy.
I thought you said. Oh no, I can't.
I accidentally closed out my tab. No. I have it on my phone. Hold on. We're gonna figure it out. Pulling up the picture. Anyway, yeah. So I want to do more research on the King Henry III of France. Oh, Mari also mentioned hermaphroditus, so I want to look into that. But basically, the one part of the video I really liked, or the one part of the podcast I really liked that Mari mentioned, was that trans people and our experiences are, we're able to find ourselves and stories that echo our own experiences in basically any time period. And I think that is something that's really interesting. And yeah, I think that's kind of how I want to end off this video, is thinking about how I can find part of myself pretty much anywhere. And that's all for now. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day or night or whatever time it is. And I'll talk to y'all soon. Good night. Wait, say bye, River.
Bye.